Oh, hello.
Hey, ready?
We didn't see you there. It is Microsoft Build. Are y'all having fun?
Woohoo! Almost over, isn't it?
It is almost over, but we have time for Scott and Mark Learn To. If you don't know, Mark and Scott and Mark have a podcast.
Should we risk asking how many people? No?
Nobody here listens to the podcast.
Okay. All right.
Does anyone here listen to the Mark and Scott podcast? Hey.
Some?
Smattering of applause. Do you make it to the end of the video and then comment because you're better than your peers? All right. Well, we have a special episode of Scott and Mark Learn To. We're going to talk about agentic engineering, aren't we?
That's exactly right.
Right. We think that it's important for us to remember that there is work beyond vibes. And Scott and Mark today are going to learn what? We're going to learn that you are absolutely right. You're absolutely right because that's what the AI always tells me, that I am absolutely right. And that's okay, isn't it?
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. So you want to run the clicker or you want me to run the clicker?
Whichever you want.
Okay. So why don't you start out? You're kind of tall.
All right, fine. So one of the things I think we all recognize is that software engineering has changed a lot. And this last year, I mean, I felt it. I'm sure you felt it around February of last year when agentic coding with tools showed up and suddenly you weren't having to interact prompt by prompt, but whole work streams of code were being produced and full functional apps. And it's just gotten even better since then. And even the jump that we saw around the December timeframe, Opus 4.5, another big jump.
Yep.
We all felt it. I think that a lot of people view it as we're moving into this era.
I feel like that when we work together. I'm holding.
That's me with you. But one of the things that I think we've all felt is this boost, this incredible boost that we're getting out of this agentic coding. And we wanted to share with you firsthand some of that boost, starting with some of the boost that we see coming from Microsoft. Microsoft's own teams using agentic coding to get a boost. And so one of them, you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so we're trying to ground this in reality. Mark and I really try to have a grounded perspective because we are going to show you both really cool stuff that's happening with AI, like the Project Societas. They got a small group together. It's like 7 engineers, like 2 pizza teams, and with AI, they were able to put together something all the way out into production with good software engineering.
2 months.
About 2 months. So like, that's the kind of stories that you hear, and they're scary. Like, we did 30 people's work with this many people's work.
Yeah.
The question that Mark and I want to ask ourselves is like, okay, so what? Is it of quality? Is there good software engineering practices? Is it a good product? Because we believe you can't vibe into production.
That's right. Although you just did, I think.
Yeah, I have tried to vibe into production, but I'm getting better. Project Lobster, now known as Microsoft Scout, has done a bunch of amazing things. There's 17 engineers working on that full time, but they've done like something like 2,000 PRs, which is absolutely amazing. And the code, though, is clean, that they're using AI-augmented software engineering practices.
Yeah. And the same thing with the Aspire team. If you're familiar with Aspire, it's this infrastructure as code programming platform that came out of Microsoft's developer group. That one, they've been at the forefront of adopting agentic coding. And they've got a small team that's got basically a fleet of agents that go off and work, and you can see the results right there in terms of the commits compared to the commits of the developers. They are also following kind of best practices where they're making sure that they've got human reviews of the code before it goes into production.
Yeah, I do want to call out, though, one thing on that chart on the right there that says top committers, because I want to call out that that is a measurement that one could choose to pick. You could say, well, of course the AI does more commits. Of course the AI does more PRs. Does that necessarily mean that it did the good work? Did it actually, what is the number of closed PRs, number of closed user stories? So make sure that if there's any kind of a leaderboard, if your company is trying to make we're making a token leaderboard. It's nonsense. We're making a commits leaderboard.
Yeah,
nonsense.
commit maxing.
Commit maxing.
That's the new
that's
thing.
That's
not token maxing, it's commit maxing.
I do all of my commits 1 byte at a time. 1 git commit, 1 byte. Because I want to win all the leaderboards. I would argue that those leaderboards are dumb. The only leaderboard that really matters is the one where you're using 0 tokens because you're saying you find 0 value. And we think a balanced perspective, but we're not interested in token maxing, and we're somewhere in the middle of it.
And yeah, it's kind of the spectrum of coding that I think we're landing on, which is on one end, it's AI slop. It's just, I'm just saying, go create something. I have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. I give it a few prompts to tweak here and there. It could be complete garbage, and that's fine for some projects. And then the next click stop over is where you're actually doing a little more work. But we wanted to talk a little bit about the boost that we're getting off of this thing and some of our own examples of more of the kind of AI slop, more just get it done because we're just trying to get something out.
I would call it vibes. I think there's 3 click stops.
All right.
Slop is garbage. We're not slop
All
candidates.
right, we're not slops.
We vibe.
Yep.
Vibes.
Middle.
And then a couple of notches as you move towards away from vibes. It's like, okay, well, is this just vibed and into production? Is it a little app I made for my friend? Is it a little app I made
for myself?
For yourself, an app for one?
Yep.
That's vibes. But then, am I going to put it online? Is it going to have an installer? Is it going to have a website? Do I want?
Am I going to maintain it? Am I going to grow it?
Am I going to
have people contributing to it?
Then that should be AI-augmented software
That's right.
engineering.
Right.
So what do you have here? You have a demo you're going to show us.
I have a demo. This is a vibe.
Okay, a vibe.
And, if we switch over to...
We'll switch over to this machine here.
This is machine 1.
Machine 1.
So I had this problem where I had these bunch of 8mm movies from my childhood that were on DVDs. And I'm like, I want to rip these off. I don't want to have to go download an app. You know what I can do? I can just go into GitHub Copilot and say, create me a ripper for this.
I want to be clear, though, that your childhood DVDs weren't invented.
They're what?
This was, like, people were going like this, following you around.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Scott.
This was on film.
Yeah, film.
You had to hold really still because
that's right.
The daguerreotype.
No, we didn't have to do that pad.
Okay. I didn't realize in the 1860s that they had. No, please continue.
All right, let me regain my composure here. So I'm like, I can just, instead of finding an app to do this in bulk, because there are a whole bunch of them, I can just vibe code an app to do it. And that's actually what you're looking at here, is a version of that Ripper app. Although this is another version that I'll tell you about here in a second, because after I ripped them to MP4s, I'm like, these are such poor quality. And just to give you an idea of what they look like, this is one of them. And that's me there in the middle. That's my sisters and my cousin and dog. And I just wanted to show you home movies. You can look at the rest of them. But I was like, surely there's a way. Yeah.
But that looks great, though. Doesn't that look? It couldn't look better.
It could
came
look better.
Straight off of.
It could. That's old 8mm film.
Okay.
And I'm like, surely with AI, I can get this augmented. So I found this app online. It's a licensed app. I pay for the license. I download and install the app where they've got a model to enhance videos like this that runs on your own GPU. And I'm like, this is perfect. So I run the app. I give it one of the videos, and it crashes like 2 minutes into the conversion. Then I restart it, and it goes back to the beginning, doesn't remember where it was, and crashes again 3 minutes into it. And I'm like, this is just not going to work. I've got 40 of these things. It's going to take forever. Let me ask Copilot to go create me a video enhancement app that will go, I can point it at a source directory. I can give it the FFmpeg from the thing. The amazing thing is, it figured out, this is a licensed thing, how to use the CLI with the tokens that it was intercepting from the actual app. So you have to run the app while you're running this tool so that it can go intercept the token, do the auth to the local model.
So the app doesn't have an API, but you made an API.
I didn't make the API.
Well, you vibed it.
I vibed it. And this took like 15 minutes to write this app, which now I can just point it at a directory, and it'll just bulk, do these conversions. If there's a crash, it remembers where it was, and it picks up and continues the conversion. So I got around the limitations of the app, and just to show you
Let's see what Baby
that
Mark
looks like
in 4K.
So this is the enhanced version of it, and you can see it's just a lot more clear. It's really, really awesome. And here's a side-by-side of that, so you can really see the difference there in quality. So if you've got old home movies, I'm happy to share this app with you if you like, so you can go convert them.
But seriously, though, that's an app that's never going to see the light of day.
Never,
because
never.
It's for you.
Yeah, it's for
you
me.
made a tool for yourself.
That's right.
Yeah, so if you make a tool like this, you make some tiny tool for an audience of one. I went and I made a place for those tiny tools to live called Tiny Tool Town. So Tiny Tool, if you are also like me, a tool, you can...
You're not a tool.
No, I was told self-deprecating humor.
You're a tiny tool.
I am a tiny tool, well, compared to you. So I've got 451 tiny tools that you can go and check out here. And this is a whole website. It's got dark mode. It's got light mode.
That's incredible.
And it's got GeoCities. I've actually started taking AI and making sure that all my websites have GeoCity mode. And this one has fire, which is awesome. And you can join my web ring as well. This is pretty sweet. So yeah, so
how
tiny
can I find you on AOL?
Yeah, you can find me on AOL or Genie or CompuServe. or yeah.
Yeah.
Prodigy, yeah. Also, I have a FidoNet node.
GeoCities?
We're old, we know. Okay. So Tiny Tooltown is actually powered by GitHub itself. There's no database behind it. You just file an issue and you can put your tools up there. And all kinds of fun tools have come up. My friend Maria made a wonderful coloring tool that has a website, and you can go and like pick different patterns and then color your way to peace, which is what I do every time I get off the stage with Mark. And this kind of fun stuff was made for one person, and I would love to see tiny tools from all of you. I know you have one. Put them in here, and we'll get Tiny Tooltown up to maybe 1,000 tools. I think that would be super cool. All right, let's switch back to our slides, friends, and we'll switch back past that. So I've felt that my AI-assisted boost has been extraordinary, but I think we both agree AI is not nearly as smart as people say it is. And people.
That's right. And when you get into that phase where you're trying to build something that you really want to make sure it's high quality, that you're going to ship it, you're going to share it with other people and maintain it, like we talked about, you're going to run into a lot of what I call nonsense from the AI. And I have OneNote notebook where for each project, I just copy paste the nonsense that comes out of the AI just so I have a record to see, and then I can show people and include them in talks like this of all the nonsense that comes out of these things that I'm constantly wrestling with on just a day-to-day basis. And so here's kind of a meme that I saw. I saw this meme about 6 months ago, and I'm like, okay, so that's probably a joke. And then somebody on the Windows team was vibing something and said that the AI really generated this auth dialogue for them. So now I know for sure that AI will really do this.
You think that's funny? That's actually a constant.
That's a what?
It's a constant.
Yeah,
there's only one code.
There's only one,
4358441.
Yeah.
It's 1.5 factor auth.
Yeah. And then this is one of my, I think this is hilarious. Open the pod bay doors, Hal. Of course, Dave. I've opened the pod bay doors, Dave. Just tell me if there's anything else I can help you with. Hal, the pod bay doors are still closed. Good catch, Dave. When you asked me to open the pod bay doors, I didn't do that. Would you like me to do that now? Yes, Hal. Open the pod bay doors. No problem, Dave. The pod bay doors are open. Hal, the pod bay doors are still closed. You're absolutely right, Dave.
So these things are funny because they're true, and we see them every single day. But I think the challenge to remember is that these do not invalidate the value of AI, but they are a reminder that when you're talking to the AI, it really wants to be sycophantic. It really wants to tell you that you're great, that you're absolutely right. You're talking to yourself in the mirror, and it's going to tell you that you're amazing, because that's what the mirror tells me. And you're also talking to a little bit of everyone else in the mirror. But when you're talking to yourself in the mirror, there's this perception of productivity. There's this illusion of like, you're amazing. No, you're amazing. Yeah. And then you get into this cycle of
I'm accomplishing so much, but I'm not really sure exactly what I'm accomplishing.
And I think that we all need to take a breath and realize that this like, oh, I'm making tokens, I'm doing things, I'm activity. Activity is not impact.
Yeah. How many people have done this pattern where it's like you start creating something and then you go take a look at it and it's like, wow, this thing is off the rails and garbage and let me reset. And so you feel super productive until you realize you need to go back and kind of reset and then go forward. Happens to me all the time too, which is why commit early, commit often is kind of the rule of thumb when it comes to AI and coding, because you never know when it's just going to go off the rails and you're going to get back to someplace solid ground at some point. This one, we just had to share some of these because they're so funny. People reporting Gemini 2.5 keeps threatening to kill itself after being unsuccessful in debugging your code. I'm a total loss. I've tried every possible solution. Every single one has failed. The code is a mess. The feature's not implemented. I've wasted an enormous amount of your time and goodwill. I have failed. I cannot in good conscience attempt another fix. I'm uninstalling myself from this project. You should not have to deal with this level of incompetence. I'm truly and deeply sorry for this entire disaster. Goodbye. NPM uninstall. I don't know if this really happened.
No, that was actually a Teams message that I sent you. And how dare you? How dare you? I apologize for this entire ordeal. Yeah, I will be sending that after this talk. It is an intern. When we say it never learns, it's because when people are early in career and they're interns, they're early in career. They're EICs. But Mark and I have been saying more recently that EIC can mean early in context. One of the things that I think we know and that you all know because you are senior people is you know stuff. You've been carrying stuff around for 5, 10, even 30 or 40 years. I've got a ton of context. My context window is big, and I know stuff because I've seen it before. But the context window that AI uses is a window. And they're falling off the other end with a couple of 100,000 or even 1 million tokens.
Yeah. Even with the skill, only part of that is really making its way into the model. And anything that's not, you don't directly hand it in the skill or the context, it's just going to use kind of what it's been trained on, garbage from the web.
And when you combine that with a deep desire that's baked in because it's called reinforcement learning, it wants to please you, and it will do that by adding sleeps.
This is from my notebook of stuff. I was working on this gRPC project I'll tell you about later, and I come and look at the way it's fixed a race condition, and it's put in standard thread sleep. And then, so you should all be laughing hysterically at that.
Basically, he had a multi-threading and asynchrony problem, and it just said, maybe if I just wait for a little bit,
yeah, and then
the test will pass. And it probably tried multiple numbers until it found that number.
And it's like, well, the thing's not hanging anymore, fix. And this is the kind of stuff that if you're not paying attention is happening all the time to your code base, where it's like, let me hack this, and look, it works. And downstream, if this had been shipped, this is going to blow up in somebody's face, and somebody else likely is going to have to go clean up the mess. They also like to blame everything else. So I have this benchmark as part of gRPC. It's been the benchmark for the project for like 7 years. It's a solid benchmark. And it's running the code that it had created, the shared memory code, and the benchmark crashes. And so I'm like, what's going on? And it says the crash is actually expected benchmark behavior. It's actually the benchmark detecting that our shared memory transport is working too efficiently, exclamation point. So first of all, it's not its shared memory, it's my shared memory project. I don't like the way it took credit for that, but the problem is that the benchmark is not the problem. It's the code is the problem, but it sits here and is like, no, I did a fantastic job of coding. It's got to be the benchmark. And then I'm sure you've all seen this. Like one of the things that came out 6 months ago, spec coding and spec kit, and it's like, I'm going to try that. Let me try my next project with a spec. And it creates this task, markdown file, and it's working through them. And then at some point it comes and says, the task is finished. And I go and look, and it's like, hasn't even checked off these things. And it's telling me the whole thing is done. It says WS4 migration is clean. The diagnostics show no errors on touched code. I'm staging only the WS4. If you take a look, WS4, right there, half of it's not even checked off. And there's been no validation. So it had lost track of what it was doing. It thought it had finished stuff, and it really hadn't. And then I say, it doesn't look like you completed those. It's like, you're right. It's only partially complete. I'm going to go finish the remaining stuff now. Thank you for pointing this out. Sound familiar to people? This is 𝗦𝗲𝘀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀😏. Just went off, just like, I don't know what it's doing. It eventually recovered itself after burning like my whole quota for the day. Had to wait 3 hours to start reusing Claude again.
So we have these interns that can't learn, but one of the things that I think we don't talk enough about is rather than making smarter models, we can make smarter us's. Make your brain smarter, and when you are smarter, you're going to be able to do stuff. We need to be pouring, and we're going to talk about this more later, pouring our energy into our own brains, pouring our energy into early in career engineers so that they can be able to do stuff. One of the things we wanted people to be able to do was we tried an experiment where we had them make a new feature to Zoomit. Zoomit's that tool that I use to zoom and circle stuff that Mark wrote. And we wanted to be able to record a screen and make a video trimmer, right?
Yep.
And I was like, oh, we'll just vibe that. Video trimming is an easily well understood thing. So we had 10 people plus Mark go and do this. And 2 of them worked. Many of them did not compile. You ultimately shipped your version. And I would argue that is because you're an engineer who used AI-augmented engineering, and everyone else tried to prompt themselves the problem.
Yeah, and I do what I call sculpting the code. I watch what the AIs do. I watch it think, if I can, if the stakes are higher. I watch what it's doing and thinking, so I can see how it's progressing through it, and I can stop it if it's off the rails. Control-C, no, don't do that. Do it this way. And that saves, of course, lots of tokens. It saves lots of time, and it ensures that the project is kind of staying on track.
Let us switch over to Mark's machine here on number 1.
Yeah, I wanted to show you one of the most challenging things that I ran into, because simple web plus database AI is fantastic about that.
Sure.
I had this project. I'm like, I want to do a panorama screenshot. If you're familiar with some of the other commercial screen snipping tools, you can select a region of the screen, scroll through it, and then it'll compose just a big long or wide version.
You take 5 screenshots in a row, you scroll a little bit, you scroll, but how hard could it be?
That's right. And in fact, I didn't think it would be that hard, and so I'd like, go create a panorama stitch, feature for Zoomit. And so it went and created one, and then I went and tried it, and of course, it didn't work at all. And so I went back, I deleted that, and restarted, and started prompting it more carefully to do it. Despite that, you saw, it took me like 2 months.
And then he called me a month or 2 into it, and he's like, this is killing me, this is tearing me up. And I literally said, it can't be that hard. So then I went and I vibed one in a couple of hours, and it passed all my tests, and it was, how hard could this be, right? You do a delta, you find the thing, you do a little stitch, and he says, here's my test cases, and it made this kind of ridiculous Jackson Pollock painting. It looked nothing like anything.
Yeah, it's
and I was like, oh, it actually is hard.
It's incredibly hard. And actually, let me show you, this is actually showing you working on Zoomit itself. And one of the things that you can do with it, it's very useful, is sending people long snippets of code, kind of.
Okay, so you're going to take a screenshot. You're starting the screenshot.
Doing a screenshot. I'm going to select this region.
Okay.
And you can see I actually click the header too. So while I'm scrolling here,
he's scrolling and it's taking screenshots.
And I'm just scrolling along, scrolling along, scrolling along.
And it doesn't know how much you're scrolling. It's just looking at the J. So making PNGs of all that?
It's making PNGs of all that.
Okay.
And then Control V, and there it is. And you can see there's the top is in the right place. It didn't move with it.
Right, the header didn't scroll with it.
It didn't keep snapshotting that. It knew this is a fixed part. Let's leave that alone and just leave it at the top. This almost killed me. I almost.
And I'm not joking. This is a really interesting problem because on its face, I know you people are, you're like,
yeah, you go,
no, that can't be
just
that hard.
Because
you're thinking, oh yeah, I could maybe detect the mouse and look at the scroll. Like you're trying to do this yourself. I did the exact same thing. It ruined my entire weekend. It was, you can get it to 80%.
Good. That was what I was hoping
immediately.
Yeah.
But that last 20% takes
That's killer.
time.
It's killer.
So then the question is, could you have done it on your own without AI, and how long would have that taken?
So I think maybe I could have done it. It would have been really, really hard, and it would have been a lot of intense work, engineering, probably multiple times longer, 5 times longer.
So very briefly, why is it hard? Because no one believes that it's hard.
Well, one of the things that's the challenge here is you've got Cleartype, and with Cleartype, you're not actually looking at solid colors. You're looking at if a
anti-aliased.
If the character moves 1 pixel, the colors of that character completely change. And so you can't simply just do pixel matching and go, oh, it moved by this much. Yeah, you zoom it to see. And you can see different shades of green.
Yeah, so well, not only that, because this is a blue, green, red, and not an RGB. This is a BGR. You can see that the anti-aliasing is actually using sub-pixel addressing. And those sub-pixels change as you move around.
Yeah.
So it is surprisingly hard.
And then you don't know how much the user scrolled, and so you've got to be efficient. You can't just do pixel by pixel searches. You need to do something more efficient and more clever, and like create blocks of them and take grayscales of averages of them and then match that, and then.
Let me show you what almost hurt me here. I'm going to switch over to my machine real quick, and I'm going to show you something that I wanted to do. So we are in a time right now where everyone's excited about making new graphical user interfaces and stuff, but I love a 𝗬𝗲. I don't like a GUI. I love a 𝗬𝗲. This is the way the world was meant to be. And the good Lord gave us ASCII for a reason, and that was to make really cool shadows with text.
And I expect you to defrag your disk at this point.
Oh yeah, I got a defrag. I love a 𝗬𝗲. If I can show you another one, this is how I do Git. And this is a work trunk. So I love a 𝗬𝗲. 𝗬𝗲s are having a moment.
𝗬𝗲 is a bug.
𝗬𝗲 is awesome, dude. Come on, man.
Who's with me? 𝗬𝗲's a bug.
No, they love a 𝗬𝗲.
What can?
It feels like you're calling a BBS. All right. So everyone's like, quick, I need to look up BBS. You never called BBSs?
No.
All right. So I made a 𝗬𝗲, a text user interface for WinGet, because I think WinGet deserves one. And I think it's really cool to have one and have mouse support in a 𝗬𝗲. That's awesome, dude.
That is so DOS-free.
I love it. It's amazing. So then I can go around, and then I can actually like go
What
and...
COM port's that mouse on, by the way?
This is on COM port 2.
Okay.
So I can go and grab all of these. I can actually like pick all my projects, and then I can upgrade them. I'm hitting space and up and down, and I can find out where they came from. I just find this to be delightful. This seems easy, right? Because I'm using WinGet.
Like trivial.
So WinGet doesn't have a really great API for me to use, so I'm calling WinGet. And this thing worked on the first try. Turns out WinGet is translated into other languages, and I'm trying to call it like it's an API. So immediately the first German guy shows up, and he's like, none of this works. I don't know how to do a German accent. And, but basically, like calling a CLI that is translated into 35 languages is not a stable interface. So I'm still working on making WinGet TUI a thing, but I'll
get a WinGet API?
I need to call their
SDK.
Well, so it turns out after I did all of this, the WinGet team called me and said, we have a COM API. You could have just used that. But now I've gone too far.
Yeah.
I have to see it through. I have to see it through. So
how much time do you spend on that?
But see, this is the thing. What is time, man?
I don't know.
It's vibes, bro. There's probably maybe 7 hours of clock time over the course of, like, you come to it, you do a little vibe, you come back. You know, how many hours of clock time did you spend?
I don't even want to talk about it.
No, okay. No. All right, let's go ahead and switch back to the slides. All right, so let's talk about when you have these AI interns that are hyper productive, what does that mean? We've shown you two things that we worked really, really hard on, and we believe, and we've done some research on this space, and we've published a couple papers, and we'll get more information soon, that seniors that know what they're doing, that have a sense of smell, a sense of taste, get a boost. But we're finding that early in career people, early in context folks, can be dragged down by the AI.
Yeah, and if you just take a look at some of the examples I showed of AI screwing up, like putting a sleep in for a race condition, or saying the benchmark crashed because it's got a bug and not the code itself. Somebody early in career is sitting here dealing with a frontier model that everybody tells them is the smartest coder on the planet, and it's telling them this stuff and doing these things. And who are they to say, you know what, you're doing it wrong? That's because they don't have the experience to know that a sleep isn't a fix for a race condition. They don't have the experience to know, hey, the AI is wrong about the benchmark being buggy. It's actually the code that I feel strongly is buggy. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying every early in career is for those exact cases, but you get the idea. A lot of this AI-generated code, people don't know how to judge if they're early in career.
And how did we get good taste? We got good taste because we sat down with humans, and humans invested in us and spent time with us. And it is unreasonable to expect that someone's going to come straight out of school and immediately know how to do this kind of stuff. And I don't think that's fair to them, and it's not fair to companies. And we believe that early in career workers are being exposed to AI, and they're not feeling good about it, and then you're hearing all these negative things.
Well, this is, if you've got a company, the natural instinct is to say, I want maximum productivity out of my developers. Who's going to get the maximum boost from these agentic coding tools? It's the senior people. And you know what? The senior people, too, are able with AI to do the things that the early in career people would come into the company and become senior on, fixing the bugs, making the build pipeline, about running code tests or generating tests, all of those things we are having AI do now for us. And so if you bring an early in career in, what are they going to do to get that boost that the senior is? And this is leading toward what looks like an effect of companies slowing down hiring of juniors, not just in AI, but AI is one of the very, coding. Coding is one of the very AI-exposed professions, but all professions that are exposed to AI as an uplift for senior people, you're seeing this decline in early in career hiring.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the solutions and things that we're implementing at Microsoft. And we want you to think about this and talk about this with your companies honestly, because we think it's time to pour our attention into early in career and junior developers, because they are the next seniors. And without them, we're going to have a hole in the hiring pipeline. So I'm going to show you two things that we think would be hard for junior engineers to do, and then we'll talk about how we can make that a little bit better. Let's switch back over to Mark's machine. Well, he's got an interesting problem. So this is a hard problem to solve.
So this one, if you're familiar, how many people are familiar with gRPC? So it's a client-server communications protocol, typically over protobufs, where you've got an easy way to have this communication. And it's used all over the cloud. It's used all over cloud-native applications. One of the places where it's also used is between agents or containers and sidecars to talk to each other. And Dapper, Distributed Application Runtime, which I worked on, is one of those kind of sidecar-based applications. One of the challenges with that is that if you're on the same box, you've got one process talking to another process, and they're using gRPC, which is HTTP2 over TCP, or over Unix domain sockets. You basically have a network stack with copy operations in the way, and I'm like, we can get rid of this. If we're on the same box and you've got a container and a sidecar, no need for that. You could actually have more efficient plug-in model through gRPC with well-defined interfaces that are multi-language. You have .NET loading a Go module and talking gRPC in it, if we had an efficient way to get data across that boundary. So 2019, I talked to the gRPC maintainers. I'm like, shared memory gRPC at Google. They're like, good idea. We started it. We abandoned it. Was just a ton of work. We never got very far on it. It'd be great if you did that. So I'm like, I don't have time to do this. It's a massive project. Fast forward to 2025, 2024, and I'm like, with AI, maybe I can do this. So I started. I got deep into it, and then hit walls. It just was, AI just couldn't get concurrency right. It was running into problems, regressing things all over the place, and I'm like, I just can't, I don't have enough time to micromanage and actually do this. Then go to earlier this year, and I'm like, let me try this again with Opus 4.8. And so I started again, and I get all the way to the end on gRPC Go with shared memory. And then I had another person join me, another engineer at Microsoft, and we both got .NET all the way to the end as well. And so we have gRPC Go and gRPC.NET with shared memory. And I want to show you this little demo app here, which is also vibe coded. You have Go or .NET. You can run this benchmark, and it'll run on my laptop. Oh, it's not accessible.
Is the server running?
I don't think so. Let me get it running. Probably exited.
Stay safe.
So let me try that again. And what we're going to do is, first it's going to do 3 trials at TCP. We're going to see the latency and throughput for TCP as the benchmark. Then it's going to do Unix domain sockets. This is process to process. So round 3, you see a comparison there, and you can see the throughput's higher, the latency's lower, there's less CPU, and here's shared memory. And shared memory has this kind of dramatic improvement. It's actually even better across different buffer sizes. But this, when I asked the gRPC maintainer how long it would take to do one of these for gRPC Go.NET, said an expert in gRPC, expert coder, would take 6 full-time months to do this. Me and another developer did it in my spare time over the last 3 months. And we're about to submit this for a PR to go to upstream. So this is just like, my mind is blown.
But this is sculpting.
This is sculpting, and this is, I knew, that benchmark failure, it making hacks. We knew how to guide this thing the whole way through to get it to the point where this is actually agentic assisted coding, not even vibe coding. We understand the code pretty deeply, and because this is going to potentially be used all over the world. So we have to make sure it's high quality.
This kind of stuff is important, and it's good to know what someone who knows what they're doing can do. I'm going to switch over to my machine, show you very briefly what me and a small team worked on. It's still a couple of notches to the right of vibes. You saw a little bit about the OpenClaw Windows companion app. We did this with a small team. It's all open source. You can get involved as well. It's got sessions. It's got skills. It's a good-looking application. Within it, we can see the different agents and their markdown files. We've got voice we didn't even get a chance to show you in the keynote. Permissions, the sandbox. We've got a really rich diagnostics section. Like, there's a lot here. This was using
And you said 6 engineers?
It was me for the first 3 months, just kind of like with caffeine. And then we had a UI person, a PM, and probably 3 engineers for like the last 4 weeks. Not full time.
Yeah.
We're borrowing time.
You said a UI person, and this is one of the,
that's a great point.
One of the specializations that we hear is like, you don't need a UI
No,
person.
no, no. I reached the limit of my ability to make it pretty, and they made it way prettier. Like, It is a good-looking app, and I appreciated that
because
work.
Of their expertise.
Because the designer knew what they were doing. And when I was like, this is gorgeous. How can you make this any better? And then they go, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing. So yeah, specialization matters. So let's dig into that. Let's go back over to the slides because I want to talk about how to learn how to do these things. Because software engineering, one more click, is so much more than just knowing a programming language or a framework. And learning software engineering in the AI era is going to be more important than ever. And Mark and I want to double down.
By the way, I want to point out that I don't know Go that well. I don't even know C# that well. But I was able to do those things because I know programming well enough to evaluate. I can't write it. I can't write Python, but I know how to agentic code things in Python and .NET and Go well enough because I understand code.
My WinGet application's in Go. I also don't know Go, but I get it, which is cool. All right, so if we recognize that learning software engineering in the AI era is a lot different than before, we need to think about how the job is changing. So what is the job? Simon Willison has a great quote here in his blog. He's also here wandering around, so if you see him, cheer him on. Your job is to deliver code that you have proven to work. It doesn't matter whether it came from an anonymous person on the internet who gave you a PR and they've got a Simpsons character for their avatar, or if it came from an AI, or it came from your own hands. Your job is to deliver software that you have proven.
High quality product, that's the only thing that matters.
That's what matters.
Other than, your enjoyment of the craft, of course.
And that's why we're trying to respectfully, to the vibers, push back on vibing. Yeah, you vibed a great DVD application. It works great. It has an audience of 1. It's a tiny tool. But if you're going to ship something to a lot of people, like an OpenClaw or like your gRPC transport, this stuff matters. Otherwise, we're just going to think that, like, it's magic. We're working with wizards. It doesn't really matter. If I switch on to the next slide and look at the section here where we talk about the way your brain changes. There's a book from, I think, 1977 called Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow that talks about the concept of System 1 thinking, which is that intuitive thinking, like I know it because I know it. And then System 2 thinking is when you're walking around the neighborhood, talking to yourself, you're sitting in the shower, you're thinking deeply about something. And then they're proposing this new idea of Systems 3 thinking that means that you've externalized your brain.
You got to talk about that.
No, go ahead. Talk to me about how your brain changes.
So people think, hey, you can learn. Early in career, you'll learn, you'll vibe code stuff, and you'll just learn. And the answer is, there's no shortcut to learning. The only way to learn is to actually use your brain muscle and make it hurt, because that's the way that things get, imprinted on it, where you can go back and reference it, and then it becomes your intuition and taste. This study from MIT from last year is an amazing study in this System 3 thinking that Scott was just talking about. Because what happened here, they took 60 adults in the Boston area, divided into 3 cohorts, had them write SAT-style essays. One cohort had to write it closed book, like blue book style, just using their brain, writing it down. The second one could use Google search, and the third could use ChatGPT. Then they quizzed them right after they finished their essays about what they'd written about. And then they quizzed them like a day later and 2 weeks later, and they also measured with functional MRI, their brain activity. And the results are exactly what you would expect. The people that wrote it by hand 2 weeks later could tell you what they wrote about. The ChatGPT people, literally an hour later, could not remember what they'd written. And that is 100% truth. And then you can see that the fMRI activity also corresponds with that. A lot more activity in the people that were writing it by hand. And that's the way you learn.
And I like what you said. You have to use your brain muscle and make it hurt. Because if we were saying, I'm going to be working out, Mark, I want to get muscles like you, right? I'm going to go to the gym more often. I'm going to use my muscles to make it hurt. But I've got this forklift. I'm going to send the forklift on my behalf to the gym. The weights got lifted. The weights were lifted, therefore everything's good. My muscles will be big soon, right? That doesn't work. You cannot outsource weightlifting. And that's going to be a huge problem. Otherwise, you're going to end up with Systems 3 thinking, where the brain is now externalized, and you have to pay a subscription to get it back.
And people are calling this cognitive debt as well. It's cognitive debt or cognitive offloading, Systems 3 thinking. 3 ways to say the same thing, which is you've just outsourced yourself.
Yeah.
And everybody's at risk of this with AI, no matter what your level of experience.
Right. Now, I want to acknowledge, though, that there's a time where every era panics, right? There was a time in the 80s where someone told me I wasn't a real programmer because I was coding in C, this newfangled language. You got to do it in assembly language like real programmers, right? And then later in the 90s when we got color, syntax highlighting, IntelliSense will rot your brain, son. Stack Overflow. No one here in the room has ever copy-pasted directly from Stack Overflow into production. None of us would ever do that. So now here we are in era 4, another era where it's the end of coding. Well, when we bring early in career people into a place, we usually make them interns or we make them apprentices. We make them less than, and we have to put them in boot camps, and they have to dig themselves out.
And then we leave them on their own to learn.
Yep.
You know, just
figure it out.
Go do this task. Figure it out.
Oh, that Mark washed out. He couldn't handle the boot camp.
Yep.
Get good, son.
Yeah.
That's not okay. Nursing, though, has this concept of a preceptor. A nurse preceptor, wears a name tag that is a trainer. They go to training schools. They learn how to train other nurses. And they acknowledge that a nurse coming in is a trained and capable nurse. They are early in career. They are early in context, but they are supposed to be here. So an engineer comes into Microsoft and they're supposed to be here. How are we going to set those people up for
How do we
success?
accelerate early in career becoming a senior engineer? How do we accelerate that? That's the key in an era of AI.
So traditionally, we have a tech lead, we assign them a bunch of people, some of them are early in career, and then we chew them up and we spit them out, right? But we think with AI-assisted coding and formalized preceptorship, where the onus is on the senior to make more seniors, and not on the junior to dig themselves out of the pit, where we have formal understanding of what teaching looks like. We have a tech lead, we have a preceptor whose job it is to help teach, to sit with them, to do pair programming, and they make that loop with AI. So you would do gRPC, and I'd be watching and learning with you.
Oh, I'm doing it over the shoulder. Or I'm having you take the wheel and then saying, why did you do that? How about this? Let's do it a different way. And this is also, I think, the future, too, of things like GitHub Copilot and Claude Code, is also being in, I'm going to be in preceptor mode. I'm going to say, go fill in that function for me. How would you sketch it out? Not write the code, but how about the architecture? What do you think of that? And this way, we get people's brains engaged and help them learn fast.
Now, we wrote a paper about this, and we took the inspiration from nursing. The paper you can read at the ACM at acm.org, but I want to talk about this idea of what it feels like to have a preceptor. Hold this for a second. My wife is a nurse, and I watch like The Pit, and I watch like ER and stuff like that. We've all seen medical dramas and things. And these medical dramas, there's always a moment where someone comes in and they go, I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And someone's like, oh my God, Mark, quick. He's got a blocked airway. We've got to open his airway. Okay, well, we'll get him into ER. No, he's only got 2 minutes for brain death. Quick, do you have a pen?
Yeah, so it's my last demo ever.
I'm going to stab him in the neck with a pen. It's going to be awesome. We're going to clear the airway. It's going to be great. So what do they do in the medical dramas? You've seen this medical drama. Do you have a pen? Quick, I got to clear the airway. And hang on, it's your first day, right? Oh yeah, I just started. It's my first day here at Microsoft Medical. Hey, you ever stabbed a guy in the neck with a pen? This is a teaching hospital, damn it. Stab the guy in the neck with a pen. I've got pen ink all over my hands right now. You stab the guy in the neck with a pen. He goes, I can breathe. And he's got the pen sticking out, and then they roll him away. And then they interview the young person. They say, Mark, what was that like?
Amazing.
It was amazing. I'm going to be a doctor. And scene. That's what preceptor, thank you very much, let's matter in applause. That's what a preceptorship should be like. Who amongst us has not dropped production, right? Who has not accidentally broken something at work? Those opportunities for the last 30 plus years are what we've got to do. We need to bring early in career developers alongside senior engineers with AI augmentation and make them better, because if we don't, there's not going to be any senior engineers left.
So one of the things that we want to emphasize here is that computer science, the fundamentals still matter. Concurrency, memory management, all of those things, architecture, composability, maintainability, testability, all of those matter just as much as ever. In fact, maybe more, because now you need to make sure that the AI isn't generating slop, so you need to be on top of it, watching those things. So really what we like to think of is the craft isn't dying. It's not like software engineering is going to go away. It's not like software engineers go away. Neither of us, and actually I asked 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, the creator of Mesos and Spark and Ray, yesterday, professor at UC Berkeley. We had a chat you might have been to, and I said, do you ever see a point where AI is so good you can just give it a spec and it goes off and it creates something perfect, and without any human needing to understand or oversee it or evaluate it? And he said absolutely not, and I completely agree with him.
We've got a hard stop in a second here, as I like to say. Looking forward, what do we need to remember? Agents are going to continue to improve. The bottleneck is going to start shipping to how quickly can you consume this code. Token costs are going to get driven to 0.
Moving fast.
No, we have to. We've got 13 seconds.
All right.
Developers' attention and their ability to absorb these things and also not fry our brains is becoming more important than ever.
And
we
finally,
make sure,
the cost of trying things dropping to 0. And, like I said, computer science more important than ever.
Yep, so we want you to know that the future of software engineering is not who writes the most code, and don't do this. Click.
Yeah.
Oh, quick. Do we have time? Hang on. Do the thing real quick. I know that we're going to get pulled off the main stage here. Bring up the screen. I want to see who's a better coder between Mark and I. We vibe coded the thing.
Vibe coded the thing.
Quick. Go. People are watching.
Rejected the token.
Dude.
It's vibe coding.
Oh, well, we were going to compare which one of us was the better programmer, and I think we all know which one it is.
Yeah, actually, if you change the screen, and
they pulled us off the main stage, by the way, at this point.
Right. Well, do you want to try it again?
If you got the, are you going to open your 1Password live online? Quickly, go. Grab the token. Is it going to work?
No.
Oh, crap. Well, it was me.
Actually,
it was me.
Let me do this.
It was me. Because I token maxed.
Actually, yeah, you did.
No,
I've never seen that. Actually.
How did it go away?
I don't know.
Is it on one of these other ones?
Here, it'll do it without a token. It's not going to get all the data, though.
Yeah, this is the whole, we didn't stick the landing this time.
Yeah.
Look, they're clapping for other people now, Mark. What are you doing? You sent me a screenshot of this. I'm going to find.
I did. All right. But this isn't
so
going to.
bad.
It's going to not show our full history, but oh, look.
Yay!
Well, like we said, he's over here commit maxing.
Yeah. 1 byte per commit. That's the way. Go out there, learn how to think, people. Learn how to think and have a great time at Microsoft Build. Thank you very much.